Could you keep a promise that you didn't really understand? Welcome back to Drotalks. Dro here. Happy 2019. Hope you guys had a wonderful holiday season, and if you're anything like me, it's back to work, back to action, and that means more audiobook reviews. So today I will be reviewing The Promise Keeper by l.marie Wood and narrated by Brenda Scott, and I'm going to butcher her last name, Wlaslow. But The Promise Keeper is a story, a vampiric story, about two women that meet in death row for murder. And the majority of the story is just reflections on their lives, how they got to where they are, and what their purpose is. I have read many books about vampires, being from my all-time favorite, which is Salem's Lot by Stephen King, to the classics, Bram Stoker's Dracula, and I listened to quite a few of the Anne Rice novels, including Interview with the Vampire. So I do like vampire books, and how will The Promise Keeper stack up to that stiff competition? With that said, I think it's a fair note to point that this book was given to me for a review to my honest opinion of this book, so keep that in mind. So for my less patient viewers out there, do I recommend? Don't I recommend? Did it stack up? Did it not stack up? I recommend this book. It is unique. It reveals a lot of the background of how the vampirism starts without losing too much of that mystery, which is kind of hard to do, and they did it well. So for those of you still with me, let's get to the story. As I said, the story follows two women by the names of Angie and Lucky, and they meet in death row for murder. And you learn about how they ended up in death row, why they committed those murders. I think one is probably pretty obvious because one is a vampire. Hint, hint. It involves blood. The other one is not a vampire, so that is a different story altogether. And it's your normal vampire type story, very similar to the Interview of the Vampire with Anne Rice. If I had to compare it with one story, that would be the obvious choice to compare it to. You learn about her origin, how she came to become a vampire, who made her, and how she traversed the centuries and got up unto that point there in death row. And through all of this, we learn about a promise that the vampire made to herself, and one that she makes Lucky make to her, which is kind of hard asking someone in death row to make you a promise, but there you go. So in their own right, both of them are the promise keepers to an extent, and we learn what that promise is, and we learn if they keep that promise or not. The entire cast, at least from what I can tell, is of African descent, which is very intriguing from a vampire standpoint. First off, you have the original vampire, who was made in a small African village. I can't remember the name. It was like Undu or something like that. They have their language, which was beautiful. I don't know if it's a real language or l.marie Wood just made up some words. I have no way to tell, but it sounded cool, and it sounded very neat. And that really added to the story, that layer, because, you know, those were turbulent times for anyone with African descent. So to see how someone with that descent could actually be immortal and live well was interesting. Although I had one gripe with the story, it would be that they didn't go into that enough. They didn't explore that avenue enough. They do explain it, they do brush over it, but I think there's a whole book just there with that, because I mean, it is very intriguing how those turbulent times would be seen through the eyes of an immortal that is with African descent. So, free tip for you. She probably already wrote that book and haven't read it yet. If so, let me know, and I'll check it out, because I think that would be a really good story. I will say I really enjoyed the origin of vampirism that they took here. It is very simple. It is very straightforward, and it still allows there to be a lot of mystery involved, which is very hard. You know, zombie books and vampire books, those two genres, you really have to balance. Do you tell how this all occurred and with sacrificing mystery, or do you keep the mystery and then frustrate everyone, like, because we all want to know how it happened? Most authors take one way or the other. L.Marie would somehow found a way to do both, which I thought was pretty cool. So with that said, I give the story a 4 out of 5. That leads us to narration. Brenda Scott Wlaslow was fantastic. This is a very small cast, very few characters, so it's very hard to compare this cast with something like Superpowers and Kyle McCarley that did that so fantastic. But with this small cast, we had very distinct characters from very distinct timelines, with very distinct accents, with a lot of languages involved. And she did it flawlessly. I was very surprised on how well the narration was for this story. And for that reason, I give narration a 5 out of 5. So that leaves us with listenability. Would I listen to this book again? As I mentioned earlier, I have read a lot of vampire books. I've listened to a lot of vampire books. But I don't necessarily re-listen to them, being one main exception, and that is Salem's Lot, which I've read like twice and I've listened to it like 3 times. It's absolutely perfect, but Stephen King is Stephen King, so that is one of my all-time favorite books. With that exception, I never really listened to these books again. So for listenability, I would give The Promise Keeper a 2 out of 5. And I would give it a 2 out of 5 mainly because this isn't my type of book. I do enjoy them, but for me it is a once over, one and done. I could see me listening to this again if I didn't really have anything else on the table to listen to, or a huge back order of books that I wouldn't want to re-listen to again. I would re-listen to Superpowers ahead of this one, and that would be an example for this book places. But that is me. Someone who really enjoys vampire books, I think they would have a different score here. So, it's my channel and I'm giving you my perspective. So I can only speculate what everyone else would like. So this gives us an overall score of 3.66. Very respectable. This is a great book. So with that said, have you listened to The Promise Keeper? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Would you agree? Was it better than Salem's Lot in your point of view? Comment below. Let me know. I'm right now sitting at 106 subscribers. I am 7 subscribers away from my giveaway. So if you do like these audiobook reviews and some of the other videos I do, stop by. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Leave a comment and you'll be in the mix to get qualified to win 1 audiobook credit from my wallet to your year. That's it for Drotalks. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. Ring that bell to get notified. And we'll see you next time.